A Little Rock airport director is shot. And people are saying that it's a conspiracy theory or it's something that stinks to high hell. Let's get to it, y'all.
Turning now to a Fox 16 News update. We have new information tonight following yesterday's shootout between a Little Rock airport executive and ATF agents. Tonight, for the first time, the brother of the man who was being served that search warrant is speaking out. Our Katrin Asaf spoke on the phone with Matthew Malinowski, the brother of Clinton National Executive Director Brian Malinowski. He says right now they're in the dark and they want to know what happened yesterday morning.
It just doesn't make any sense, the way they did it.
One day after this quiet neighborhood in West Little Rock woke to the sound of gunshots, Brian Malinowski's brother, Matthew, is sitting at an attorney's office thinking of what to do next.
I think the next thing is go to the house and take as many
What's
pictures
up,
as
LS?
possible of all the damage.
Malinowski was the subject of an ATF search warrant early Tuesday morning. The executive director of Clinton National Airport caught in a shootout that left one agent hospitalized and Brian on life support.
He's mortally wounded. He was shot in the head with a high-caliber weapon.
As evidence is collected and neighbors adjust to the shock, Matthew is holding his own investigation.
Right now, we're trying to gain truth and facts.
Trying to figure out why his brother was targeted.
Brian has no incentive to do anything illegal.
And what led agents to break in the way they did.
The ATF should have never raided him like they did. They could have thrown tear gas in there. They could have thrown a shot grenade in there. They could have just said with air horns, hey, get your tail out here, we're the ATF.
While Matthew says Brian collected weapons, guns, and coins at his home on Durance Court. He says he's never been in trouble with the law before. And with no word from law enforcement on what exactly was in that search warrant, Matthew is left planning for an uncertain future, with more questions than answers.
I'm confused, I'm tired, I'm living on adrenaline at the moment.
Katrin Asaf reporting. Matthew also telling Fox 16 they will pursue litigation as much as they can. In fact, he met with attorneys today to see what can be done. He also said Brian's wife was next to him during that shootout. An ATF agent was shot as well, and we're told.
How did an ATF agent get shot? I don't understand that. So basically, a director of the Clinton National Airport over in Little Rock, Arkansas, was raided by agents that was serving a search warrant at 6 a.m. when someone inside the home fired gunshots at the agents. The agents returned fire, striking the shooter. It was identified as him. It was the director. They saying that basically it had something to do with guns or him, the sale of guns and all of that other type of stuff. Shout out to Fatty. I'm going to read that super chat shortly right after Quick Hits. And now the family is just looking for ways for them to basically sue the federal government or the ATF, which is basically your tax dollars. And they saying that they shouldn't have raided him that way. Listen, I don't know what's going on, but it sounds fishy to me. And it's a weird situation. It's a very, very weird situation. All right. In addition to that, that's the wrong one. Hold on, let me get that up. I'm sorry. Give me a second. Truth Social. So Trump's Truth Social payday may be at hand as far as solving for all of his financial issues. Check it out, y'all.
Jim, I'm going to start with one you may not expect, and we watched Reddit go public. Next week, we're going to have a de-SPAC of a company that is starting to once again get a bit of attention, and that is Digital World Acquisition Corp, DWAC.
DWAC?
Yeah.
Oh, God, you're on that. I'm not home.
I have been on it for some time.
Home.
I've been talking about it. Talked about it last week, I think, briefly as well, in part because of the overall conversation around former President Trump's legal bills and his need to post a bond of somewhat $454 million here in New York. And the access that he potentially has to what would be billions of dollars of shares if current prices hold in DWAC. Why do we mention it now? Because tomorrow they're having their vote. And they're going to vote in favor, obviously, of the deal to merge with Trump Media and Technology Group. And that's the math. I'll come back to it in a minute. You can see Digital World has had a very nice run of late, and let's call it 44 or so. You want to do the math? I can take you through it because
year to date, they up 156%. That's insane. What kind of run up is that? Year to date, they up 156%.
Mr. Trump will, TMTG, essentially, Mr. Trump will have 87.5 million shares right away and another 40 million on a so-called earnout. The earnout looks pretty money good right now. It basically says if in any 20-day period following the de-SPAC, which will happen next week, by the way, that's when we're expecting it, any 20-day period, the stock stays above 1750. There are actually various numbers along the way here, but 1250, 15, 1750. He gets another 40 million shares. So you can do the math. That's 127.5 million shares. Multiply that by 45. You get about 5.7 billion, maybe even more. I haven't done the math in this very moment. Dollars worth of stock. The overall.
So what's basically being reported is that Trump is basically Teflon Don Trump, and they saying that his shares could be worth somewhere north of $5.6 billion, depending on the stock price and depending on the merger itself. And I guess when you know money and you know how to get to money, it just continues to print for you, and it really don't matter what happened or what they try to do to you. He not worried. He continuing to run for president, and he going to run it up regardless. So they saying that this is going to solve all of his potential money problems. And what people don't really understand is that even when you're a billionaire, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have access to $1 billion. It means that your net worth is whatever it is, right? So when you take into consideration all property, shares, everything like that, I understand that, Eric Daniels. I'm not going into all of that. This is just quick hits. But my point is that, and he can borrow against those shares if you really want to go into it, right? He can borrow against those shares as long as it's somebody that's willing to lend to him. But the point is that when your net worth is of a certain amount, it doesn't mean that you have that money in cash. It means that you don't necessarily have that liquid, but your entire portfolio minus your problems or minus whatever it is, your liabilities, it equates to a certain number, and that's what your net worth is. So a lot of people conflate that. They say, oh man, you're not really a billionaire, or he's not really a billionaire. That doesn't mean that. We don't really know exactly what his net worth is, but you can leverage assets and borrow money, which then actually makes it even better from a tax perspective. But that's Patreon level game right there. I'm not going to get into that. And then last but not least, Reddit. Reddit is going public with their share price above their IPO price, which is their initial public offering. Take a look a little bit. I'm going to actually be breaking this down inside of Stock Club probably next week, but we'll get to it.
Right. We begin, however, with Reddit. Exciting day for that company, marking the first social media IPO since all the way back in 2019, 5 years ago. Shares opening at $47 a piece. But beyond social media, there's a lot of discussion around its role in the AI area. Listen to what the CEO had to say about that.
The value of our data is growing. In a world where more and more content on the internet is created by artificial intelligence, the premium on actual intelligence, which is what Reddit is, continues to grow.
Here to discuss is our own Deirdre Bosa, along with Deepwater Asset Management's Doug Clinton. Deirdre and Doug, welcome. Good to have you with us. Deirdre, I'm going to turn it over to you to ask the first questions here.
Okay, well, I guess then, Doug, I will ask you a question. What do you make of this Reddit pop? Of course, it's still early. It has to settle. But, I mean, 50%, that's pretty good. It's not as good as yesterday's IPO, that Astera Labs 70% pop. Do you think that Reddit is more AI adjacent or kind of like an AI company as it's been trying to present itself throughout the roadshow and in the S1?
Deirdre, I think it tells us, number one, that the IPO window right now for tech, especially if you have a little bit of an AI story, is wide open. In terms of Reddit itself, I don't think that their AI story is as clear as Astera Labs' story. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is still the majority of Reddit's business, and the majority, I think, of the future in terms of how the stock reacts, will be dependent upon their ability to convince advertisers to spend more on the platform.
Reddit, in my opinion, personally, as a long-term play. Now, if you guys are out here options trading, then that's a form of gambling, in my opinion, and I do not necessarily advocate for that. And I don't talk about that because I'm not an advocate for options trading in general. I'm not an advocate for day trading or options trading. What's up, Quinn? What up, R Streets? I'm an advocate for a long-term investment. As a long-term play and a long-term investment, two things. I think that whoever it is that has shares in Reddit, equity ownership in Reddit, especially the workers that was waiting on it to IPO, I think that they need to go ahead and get rid of it. I think that they need to cash out, take their money, and then put it in something that's actually viable for the future. Secondly, they have to become interdependent on advertising, which we know that there's a limited amount of dollars that can be spread out amongst advertising. They're depending on AI terms in order to try to generate interest in a stock, and it's the latest IPO, and so it's always going to pop. But I think that people need to take their money and they need to run. I don't see it. They become interdependent on Google a little bit. And if they waiting for people to spend advertising dollars on Reddit, Reddit is trash. Reddit has never been a profitable company in all of the years that it's existed. I am not a fan of Reddit, so I don't know. That's just my personal opinion personally. It's only gambling if you don't know what you're doing. Yeah, that's what everybody said that gambles. HAY says it's only gambling if you don't know what you're doing. Every single person that lose their shirt say the same thing. I'm going to give you another thing that gamblers say. Listen, you only lose if you quit. Don't quit. Winners never quit. Keep on putting money into it. Keep on dumping money into it.